Welcome to Breaking the Fourth Wall, Limo's hard-hitting and unbiased opinions on the wrestling world. Today, I am the Razman alongside my co-host.
I am WWE TNA for life, and at the time of this recording, I am currently not wearing pants. So anybody who wants to know that, feel free to, have your imagination run wild with that.
And just as preparation, I seem to be a little bit tongue-tied today. So there you go with that as well. For anybody wondering, Skinslip is still co-host on this show. It's just he's currently unable to join us, so we're looking forward to Skinslip coming back and being a part of the program when he's able. And we wish you the best, man, and we hope that you'll interact with us on Twitter or send us an email for next week. Maybe we can read some of your thoughts off or what have you. But we made two decisions. We're getting back to doing this as a weekly program because it was seriously slacking, and we were upset about that. So
Yeah,
it's going to be recorded every Monday at 1 o'clock, and we figured Monday's a good day, except for the days, I should emphasize, except for possibly the weekends of pay-per-views, because I don't get to see pay-per-views until Monday. So on those days, it'll be recorded whenever I finish watching a pay-per-view.
right, right.
So, but anyway, the idea was to record it on a Monday so that we're jazzed up to talk about wrestling. And the other decision you can probably already immediately tell, and that is that we've gone back to using MPT Skype Recorder to record the show, because although we like the live interaction with our listeners, the audio quality on Google Plus, let's face it, it just plain blows.
Yes, it just, it sucks. For a while, it was good. I mean, like I said, I too like the interaction with the fans, But there's two problems with Google Plus that I've seen. One, the audio. Two, you have a massive, massive delay with the chat. It's
You do
massive.
it. It makes it very hard to interact with you guys that way. So, what we want you to do to offset that. Oh, sorry, Brendan. I thought you were done. You were. Let me finish your thought there. Sorry. I'm a bit
No,
rusty.
no, that's all I really had to say. Just that's the major problem I have with Google Plus, the massive delay in the chat. I hated that.
Yeah, and plus, ever since they've gone HD, it seems to be that there's a little bit more of a lag on the Hangouts on Air. Like an entire series that I've done for work at Handi Enterprises Inc. has was done on the Google Plus Live Hangouts on Air, and if you've watched the videos back, our lips are majorly out of sync.
You look like Japanese anime film or something.
Yeah, so. Bottom line is Google Plus just needs a lot of improvement. So what we're going to do to offset doing the audio recording style is we want you all to interact with us on our Twitter at BTW Fourth Wall.
Yep.
And we also want you to use our brand new studio line at 937-660-8571. And that'll be open the entire time we do any recording session, which is why we advertise when the recordings are done at the beginning of the program. We don't expect to get a lot of interaction today, but maybe by next week you all will have known. So those are the changes we're making, and we're hoping that it's going to be for the better, because we know we can blab about wrestling, but we want to create a good show on top of it. So
Yeah. Little correction, it's BT4 Wall.
oh, what did I
Yes.
say?
You said BT4, BTW Wall.
BT4 Wall
Yeah.
on at BT4 Wall on Twitter.
Yes.
I got a little confused because, as you know, the show went through a name change unintentionally, and we
Yep.
we were able to keep the same Twitter and just change the handle. So
Yep.
we haven't used it in a while
Yep. We have not.
until now.
Right.
So, and also we have the Facebook fan page as well, which you can leave us interaction on there, but we do tend to see Twitter a lot faster.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on to the actual show now, because we've
Yep.
done so much technical babble. I
Yep.
apologize for that, but we always start the show off with a wrestling news segment called Behind the Curtain. But Honestly, this week there's really nothing to talk about except the early WrestleMania 30 rumors. So
Yep.
let's talk about those, I guess, a little bit. The biggest one being Plan A and B and C for Undertaker. Plan A appears to be John Cena versus Taker. What are your thoughts on that?
The only real thing that John Cena has to do in the WWE. John Cena and The Undertaker have fought each other before a long time ago, but they have never fought on the biggest stage of them all, with the streak on the line. And John Cena is really the only legitimate threat to The Undertaker. Everybody thought that Shawn Michaels was going to end it. There were a few people that said CM Punk was going to end it. I'm the one that said CM Punk was going to end it.
And you know what? He is the only guy since Shawn Michaels to like legitimately come close.
Yeah.
I mean, they built up Triple H, sure, but you never really believed that Triple H would end the streak. With as much momentum as CM Punk had the year that he was going after the streak, to me, he was a legitimate threat.
Yeah. More, I agree with that, 100%. And John Cena, we say it all the time, he's the poster boy of the WWE, and, he...
Which I want to talk a little bit about Cena later on, but...
Okay.
So I'll react to that statement later on, but continue.
Okay. Yeah, The Undertaker, he's been in there, this is now going to be WrestleMania 30, been in there since 97. So I think The Undertaker is on his final, years, if not the final year of WrestleMania
Well,
30.
to me, nobody wants to talk about it, especially someone that we know.
Yeah.
But Undertaker has got to eventually hang it up. And to me, it just writes itself. 30 years of WrestleMania, 30 years of streak.
Yeah.
I mean, just stop it there. Because if you make it 31, 32, 33, then it doesn't have that magical number behind it.
Yeah.
If you're going to continue it beyond 30, you almost have to give it another 5 years and end it at 35.
Yep.
And I just don't know if Taker has that in him.
Oh, I can almost guarantee you that Undertaker does not have that. Since he's such in bad shape,
although the last couple of years, I gotta admit, with him only doing one match a year, the last couple of years he's looked a lot better than we've seen him recently.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hear that WWE is hyping his return already, so
well, I have the story behind that, and it actually was a news story that I forgot. So we're kind of doing the show all over the place today. I promise we'll get back in swing. But the truth is, the reason behind that was because WWE, we don't know what it is yet, but they're doing something with Seth MacFarlane. Or not Seth MacFarlane, sorry. What is his name? Scott MacFarlane, I think.
Oh, yeah? I was gonna...
The guy who created Spawn.
Yeah.
The comic book writer.
Oh, really?
Todd McFarlane.
Okay. I was gonna...
I was trying to... I can't remember. I knew it was something McFarlane, and I said Seth out of habit. But yeah, Todd McFarlane, he's the guy that wrote Spawn and a bunch of other popular comic books. And there was a story that WWE was going to enter the comic world. One of them is being produced by McFoley, and this other one is being done by Todd McFarlane.
Huh.
So I don't know if it's just going to be Undertaker or possibly Undertaker and Kane both.
Yeah.
Because both of them have been hyped up. But yeah, that's the news that came out about that. That's what it is. Everybody thought it was just for 2K14 or maybe that they were hyping up an early return. But no, it has... When they use the words redefining a legend, that's what they meant. They're going to somehow or another take the Undertaker character into comic book form, which should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, he'd be a good comic book character, the Undertaker would.
Yeah.
So would Kane. So
yeah.
I'm all for that. But yeah, John Cena, I think, is the only legitimate threat. Bigger threat than Ryback. What the hell?
Unless they can find a way to do Brock versus Taker, which of course is the second leading rumor. If Rock doesn't do WrestleMania 30, then obviously they need something for Lesnar because Lesnar's under contract. So even though it's like 4 years too late almost, they think they could do something with that feud. But I will say this, regardless of how people feel about it, and regardless of the fact that it's probably going to be his last WrestleMania ever this year, if they did Brock versus Taker, there's no way they could get around not doing Badass Taker.
Nope.
Because Deadman Taker does not make any sense at all going after Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I believe it was WrestleMania 18 where I watched Ric Flair versus The Undertaker. I watched that a few days ago, and just seeing him, a badass Taker, going in and just destroying David Flair and using like he had like a whole Texan accent. It was really, really cool. I'm like I want this old Undertaker back so badly.
Yeah, I don't know why people hate on Badass Taker so much. I mean, I get that the Taker gimmick came first, and it's got like a lot of history behind it. I get that, but in this day age of wrestling, especially, I think Badass Taker works better because wrestling is all about blurring the lines of reality. I mean, what we're seeing on WWE program, which we will get into once we get out of a news and rumors segment, because I'm sure we have a lot to say about it because we haven't done a podcast in a while. But what we're seeing on WWE programming right now is the antithesis of blurring the lines of reality. And no pun intended with my brand name either. That's just a fun coincidence. But
there you go.
that's what we're seeing now. And to me, it just would be the right time for Mark Calloway to be himself as Undertaker.
Yeah.
Because he was awesome at it.
Yeah.
He really was.
Yeah. Although I when I was a kid, I really loved the faces of the faces in WWE. So I wasn't like knowledgeable when I was little. So when Mark Calloway, the Undertaker, attacked Jim Ross, I loved Jim Ross at the time, and when he attacked Jim Ross, so when Kurt Angle was in the ring and everything, I was like, oh, I hate The Undertaker for doing that. You can't do that to Jim Ross.
Oh, I know, yeah, that was definitely a memorable moment. That, to me, is tied for the most memorable Undertaker moment alongside him crucifying Stephanie McMahon.
Yep.
And also the stalker being revealed as DDP.
DDP, yep.
Because I was a huge, and I don't have to tell you this because one of your gifts to me was Nitro Volume 2. Yep. I'm one of the biggest WCW marks on the planet.
Yep.
So I was absolutely... DDP was one of the last big names. Well, he was the last one other than Goldberg who came in after him.
Yep.
But DDP was the last big name from WCW not to come over when they did the whole buyout.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely just floored.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably the only one back then that cheered that.
Awesome.
Because I just remember that moment being cool. But it sucks because WWE dropped the ball with him. I mean, there are people that like DDP as a person in wrestling, and there are people that don't. But as a character, as him being literally a fan that became a wrestler, like he started out as a fan, then he was a manager, then he got in shape, and he started wrestling in like his late 40s.
Yeah.
So there's like a whole awesome story about him being the everyman guy as a wrestler, and he became one of the greatest of all time. And I don't think that he gets enough credit just because of that. I'm like, he was able to just sell himself as himself and make it work. You know? And a lot of guys can't do that.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to have a lot of charisma to do that. You have to, be loaded with that. And that's what DDP was.
Yeah, and DDP did the move 10,000 times better than Randy Orton.
That got you a retweet from DDP, didn't it?
It did. DDP Yoga is following Razman's reality, which is one of my most prideful things I can say. And the reason that it happened is because I was watching a collection that WWE put up on their YouTube channel, The Best Diamond Cutters, and I had said to him, it was the same night that he came back on Raw, which obviously nobody knew why they were doing it at the time. Like nobody put two and two together at the time. But between that and when he came back on Raw as part of the 25th or 1000th
Yeah.
anniversary of Raw, I almost said 25th anniversary. That's something else entirely. But
Yeah.
as part of Raw 1000, when he came back on the lead up to that, I had said I don't care because he did the diamond cutter onto who did he do it on at the time?
Uh,
I can't remember now.
it was Heath Slater, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Slater. Yeah,
Yeah.
when he hit Slater with the diamond cutter, I said I don't care what anybody says. The diamond cutter will always be 10,000 times better than the RKO. And it's not just because they do the move differently. Like if you want to get really technical, they are different moves. They're not the same move because the RKO is done with one hand
Yep.
for the most part, whereas Diamond Cutter was always two hands.
Although I will.
And I think that the two-handedness, I'll let you chime in here in a second. I'm just finishing the
Okay.
thought.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that the two-handedness is what sold the Diamond Cutter. I think the two-handedness made the neck look like it was being snapped back a lot harder and made the move look a lot more vicious.
Yeah.
That's my opinion about it.
Yeah. I mean, the Diamond Cutter is a brutal move. Although when Randy Orton did the RKO from people who are flying off the top rope, that is probably the sickest RKOs I've seen in my life. The Evan Bourne RKO I'm mentioning in particular was the.
Well, that was an amazing RKO, but that had more to do with Evan Bourne and Randy Orton.
Yeah, which it I want to see Evan Bourne get that push. I think Evan Bourne, he can.
If Evan Bourne ever comes back to WWE, because every time they try to give him an opportunity, he squanders it.
I don't know. He's a big weed head. He smokes a lot of weed. So
Yeah,
I think.
and it's funny you mention that because that's the final thing I was gonna say about it because we ended up on a diamond cutter tangent here.
Yeah.
And we're trying to talk Undertaker.
Yeah.
the the last thing I wanted to say about it was moves have a lot to do the majority of the time with who you're putting the move on because a finishing move is a two-man job.
Yeah.
And I think that the diamond cutter in the mid 90s, everybody that worked in WCW and even the early 80s when he first started, back then, everybody just really knew how to sell. Selling has become somewhat of a lost art in
Yeah.
wrestling now,
Yeah.
except for a handful of guys.
Yeah.
But back then, everybody really knew how to sell. And to me, the most memorable diamond cutter, I mean, you talked about the most memorable RKO. To me, the most memorable diamond cutter, and I'm sure you've seen it. It was on an episode of WCW Saturday Night. It was DDP versus the late great Eddie Guerrero, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And DDP goes for a power bomb, and he turns the power bomb into a diamond cutter.
Nice.
And it is the most memorable one you'll ever see. Like if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you right now, look it up after we're done recording because you will be absolutely amazed by it.
Awesome. I'm gonna go look that up. I didn't even know. This shows how very, very learned I am about WCW. I didn't even know WCW had a Saturday show.
Oh yeah, WCW Saturday Night was the first Saturday Night Wrestling program. Like there would not even be a Saturday Night's Main Event. Like Vince totally stole the idea from the NWA, whether he admits it or not.
Yeah.
Like because NWA Saturday Night Wrestling became WCW Saturday Night,
Yeah.
and subsequently there became a Saturday Night's Main Event
Yeah.
throughout time, which is something I want to talk about because WWE for a long time has talked about a network or, trying to find a way to work a show, another show that people would actually care about. I think that it's a huge missed opportunity with SmackDown. If you want to make SmackDown a relevant show that people actually want to pay attention to, put it on Saturday nights. Because Saturday nights used to mean so much to professional wrestling. Saturday, it's now become Sundays because Sunday is their pay-per-view day.
Yep.
But either put a show back on Saturdays or put pay-per-view on Saturdays.
I remember watching a young Michael Cole on a show called WWF Livewire on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
And that would be a whole recap show of everything that happened in wrestling. But I loved that show. Michael Cole was the only one who worked that, and was the host of that show, and it was amazing.
Oh yeah, I loved Livewire. Livewire was the only decent recap show they've ever done,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
I'm glad they got the Saturday Morning Slam off of there. That was the Saturday morning show, but that show sucked.
Well, and it's ironic because that show tanked, and right after that show tanked is when the product started to shift. And let's talk about it because we really. Oh wait, I forgot. We gotta quickly talk about rumor number 3 because we totally lost track of Undertaker talk here.
Yeah.
But rumor number 3 is obviously the least attractive, which is Ryback versus Taker.
Okay, and let's give our opinions on Ryback.
I want to talk Ryback, but let's just talk Ryback Taker first before we start a whole Ryback tangent.
Okay.
I don't. Their reasoning behind doing it is because it's going to be Paul Heyman for second year with Undertaker.
Yeah.
I don't think that's enough. I personally would not be invested in Ryback versus Taker.
Yeah, I wasn't invested in Paul Heyman the first time. I was invested in CM Punk. I was not invested in Paul Heyman. Although Paul Heyman really sold being a manager well, Paul Heyman, he can do that. But I'm not interested in a manager in a streak match. I'm interested in the guy going for the streak. And,
And if the guy going for the streak doesn't sell himself as a legitimate threat, then it doesn't work. And I don't care what they do with Ryback between now and Mania. Mania is still too close. Because here we are on September 30th. Mania is still too close. I mean, April's going to be here before we know it.
Yep.
It may seem like forever away, but it's really not. And it's just not enough time to make Ryback that big of a player.
Yeah, and speaking of Paul Heyman, I just read a rumor where after the Paul Heyman-Ryback feud, they're going to put Punk back in the WWE title picture. So, right now, I'm breaking...
Thank God for that. But, here's the problem. Punk has to be a heel in the WWE title picture, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think that it just wouldn't work if they did Ryback versus Taker, especially if they think Ryback should be the one to end the streak. Like, that would be a black mark.
Yeah.
In wrestling, and I hope to God WWE doesn't do that because they're doing everything right now. Whether anybody realizes it or not, as somebody that lived through the Attitude Era and lived through the 90s when wrestling was at its peak, I'm telling you, we are seeing Attitude Era like stuff. This corporation, Daniel Bryan storyline is returning wrestling to being entertaining week in and week out. And this is the first time I'm dead serious when I say this. This is the first time in 5-6 years that I'm legitimately looking forward to watching Raw every Monday.
Yep.
And that is a testament to what they're doing. And I'm the first guy to admit that I'm wrong. Because for those that do follow the YouTube recordings, you know that, and also the DG.com archives, which we didn't forget to shout you out at the Yankee, don't panic. But, for anybody that's followed the show long term, you know that I was flipping out. And I was really, really upset. that Daniel Bryan got screwed at the end of Survivor Series. But, or not Survivor Series, sorry, SummerSlam.
Yep.
But I am the first to admit that I was wrong because I had no idea, I could not foresee them turning a Randy Orton heel turn into working so cohesively with Triple H and bringing back a modern version of the corporation.
Yep.
And the way they've done it, it doesn't make it seem repetitive and you don't get annoyed with it.
Yep.
If you can't appreciate this right now in WWE, then you don't know what good writing is. Because the thing about it is, I called into a nationally syndicated program hosted by Justin LaBar called Wrestling Reality on Triple I Radio.
Yeah.
And I talked about this very thing. The problem with wrestling fans now, in this day and age, is that everybody has no patience.
Yep.
And everybody wants instant gratification. And nobody understands the art of building to a big moment. When Daniel Bryan wins that title legitimately at Survivor Series, because it will happen.
Yep.
It will happen. Something else will go down at Battleground, where they'll make one more match. Not to pull a Christian, but that's what it is.
Yep.
We'll have two more matches in this feud. And when this feud ends at Survivor Series on one of their biggest pay-per-views of the year, at a time when they're about to turn a corner toward a WrestleMania build, it will be so much more gratifying for Randy Orton because what they've done, and this is what I don't understand about what the audience thinks about instant gratification, they've made us care about Daniel Bryan more. Those of us who have followed Daniel Bryan when he was Bryan Danielson are more invested in him now than we even were back then, before. Yep. Because every time Daniel Bryan gets screwed over, we get more and more angry. And what that is that the writers and the performers doing their job. If you're getting pissed off at what you're seeing on television, the job is being done. If you got pissed off when they vacated the WWE title, then the job is being done. And the more you try to fight it, and the more you talk about how stupid you are, or stupid they are, sorry, the more you're validating them. Yep. So, to all the wrestling fans out there that are cynical right now, I just want to say, grow a pair of balls and stop. Because you are giving WWE exactly what they want by being idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right now that the best storyline that's been around in years. And, like you said, an Attitude Era-esque to a T. As soon as, I seen the gold as soon as Triple H pedigreed Daniel Bryan.
He did foresee it. I'll give him credit for that.
As soon as I knew, I seen it coming. As soon as, Randy Orton was heading down the ramp with the Money in the Bank, I seen Triple H standing behind Daniel Bryan. And, I love Daniel Bryan. I was rooting for him in that match with John Cena, but I would, pedigree him. I'm pedigree Daniel Bryan right now, Triple H. Because that will set in motion for an awesome storyline. And, he did, and it's just been an amazing, amazing storyline.
And it's so eerily similar, and this is the other thing people aren't picking up on. It boggles my mind. It's so eerily similar to Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Because if you think about all the hoops that management made Stone Cold jump through, and then at WrestleMania, when he was able to legitimately stand as WWE Champion, with no controversy, and Jim Ross goes, and we got to talk about Jim Ross toward the end of the program. We're saving that for the end of the show because we're going to have a lot to say about it. But when JR says the Austin era has begun, and everybody remembers hearing those words, everybody remembers what was going through their mind in that moment and how good they felt. That's what we're going to get to hear Michael Cole and JBL say. We're going to get them to hear them say the Daniel Bryan era has begun.
Yep.
and everything will be worth it, and he will get that title, and he will run with it, and it'll be one of the greatest 6 month periods we've ever had.
Yep.
But in the meantime, you can't discount him getting there, because him getting there is awesome.
Yeah.
I love everything about what they're doing.
Yeah. I think the chase is just as important, if not more important, than winning the title, because the chase really, uh, I think, solidifies what kind of champion you're going to be. Because if you,
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, I mean, if you pay attention, because it's all about subtlety. If you pay attention to what's said week after week after week, they stop it a little bit now because Triple H is doing his best to play a tweener, but it doesn't work. It just gets him more and more heat,
yep,
which is proof of how brilliant he is.
yep,
But when they week in and week out were calling Randy Orton the face of the WWE and calling Daniel Bryan a B plus player, in actuality, what they were doing was they were acknowledging the fans, and they were saying that they know what's happening, and they were saying that Daniel Bryan is the face of WWE,
yep,
and they are currently showing Daniel Bryan so much respect because they're legitimizing him. Everything they're doing with him is legitimizing him. If they would have just put the title on him and said, this guy's going to carry the title because of his history, yeah, that could have worked. But what we older fans tend to forget, what we fans that have been watching wrestling for a while, people like us that do shows like this, tend to forget all the time, is that there are new fans. There are fans out there that don't see a wrestler until he comes to WWE.
yep,
There are people that don't follow Ring of Honor whatsoever.
yep,
So they have, by doing this storyline, legitimized Daniel Bryan. They're making him sympathetic to the crowd so that everyone, whether they were a fan of Bryan Danielson or not, they're a fan of Daniel Bryan. They want to see Daniel Bryan succeed. And that's the key.
yep,
That's the key to this whole thing.
yep. Daniel Bryan Danielson is one of the best in the world. Um, along with Chris Jericho and CM Punk. Um, and to see him pull out good matches out of people that you think cannot do a good match. John, John,
Roman Reigns.
yeah, Roman Reigns, John Cena. Although you've heard my spiel on, John Cena haters, I think,
And I have my own spiel on John Cena haters that I want to do in a minute.
Okay, okay, we'll definitely I'll let you do that. But he pulled out a SummerSlam. That's arguably one of John Cena's best matches, except for CM Punk versus John Cena on the Raw after WrestleMania. That hands down the best Cena match ever.
Yeah,
In my
that's
opinion,
definitely one of them.
yeah,
But you have to put Cena versus Bryan in SummerSlam in that same category now.
yep, yeah, no doubt. Randy Orton. Many people are tired of Randy Orton because he said he's not the legend killer Randy Orton. But I'm like, you have to evolve with your character. You have to evolve with the times. And the Legend Killer, as awesome as it was, we're never going to have it again. Because Randy Orton had evolved as a person, evolved as a character. And, it was awesome. But I don't think ever in the WWE again are we going to see the Legend Killer. Except if you want to bring him back for the whole Goldust, Dustin Rhodes. If you want to pull in, he's the Legend Killer in that aspect. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because we haven't talked about that either. This whole main event storyline between Bryan and Orton, it shifted the entire product to where all of the storylines are basically one big storyline working off each other. And I really like the fact that the Rhodes and the McMahons had enough guts to put their real life history on television.
Yeah.
because it's made for a very entertaining storyline, and it's gonna make Cody Rhodes' career. I think Cody Rhodes, hands down, will be the number two face in WWE through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I personally, I think that what we're going to see made tonight on Raw is that we are going to see tonight at the time of this recording for anybody listening to an archive. It's September 30th. It's 2013.
Yep.
But I think that what we're going to see tonight on Raw is a match made between the Shield and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Goldust, and Cody Rhodes.
Yep. You could call them the American Dreams.
You could.
I guess.
You could. Or you could just call them the Rhodes family, which is probably how they're going to book it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the Rhodes family versus the Shield. And I think they're going to probably have some kind of stipulation where if any one of the Rhodes family members win, then Cody and Goldust get a job. And originally this was just about Cody and pushing Cody. But I think Goldust, like, when they brought him back just to further the storyline, I think he probably legitimately surprised the higher-ups in the WWE because Dustin Rhodes can still wrestle. He is a tremendous wrestler.
Yeah, that match against Randy Orton, I would watch it and I'm like, oh, that Goldust actually still has some left in the tank.
And matter of fact, I think he looked better in that match than he looked during his prime.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think all the time off has benefited him.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt.
So I do think that you're going to see, unfortunately for Goldust is a nostalgic guy, and he's going to do nothing but like be in like U.S. title feuds
Yep.
to get other guys over, to legitimize other guys, but that's okay. Because there is a definite spot in wrestling for guys like that. Like, you can make an argument that Chris Jericho and RVD are both those guys right now. But you wouldn't want either one of those guys off your TV.
No, not at all. I still, as long as he's been in there, I still see Jericho as a, main event guy. I still see him as, World Heavyweight title, WWE title. Although the World Heavyweight title has lost a lot.
Well, we got a rant on a lot of things, and the world title is definitely one of them.
The Alberto Del Rio title is what I call that. But go ahead.
Well, we'll go ahead and start it now because you went into it. The thing that has happened with the world title is because they're putting so much emphasis on what's going on Raw and changing Raw, is that the world title's become not important.
Yeah.
It's not a world title anymore. It's basically a glorified WWE television championship.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Because Alberto Del Rio is on TV every week, and that feud gets continued on TV every week, and they sell it on TV. Because they're not basically SmackDown. Because they're not going to give it any time on Raw for it to be properly sold.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
And if you think about it, Alberto Del Rio combined had held that title for a good 2 years. I can't think of anyone else who's had that title. In the beginning in 20...
Well, and it's a shame what has come out about Dolph Ziggler. Because Dolph Ziggler is a phenomenal performer, bestseller in wrestling, not named Daniel Bryan, hands down. But WWE doesn't ever see him as a guy that's going to draw money.
They don't see.
That's why Dolph Ziggler has fallen. That's why a lot of people thought he was in a doghouse. It's as simple as that. They don't see him as a money drawer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. Because if you look back at that pop that he got when he cashed in, that's the biggest pop of anybody not named Daniel Bryan or The Rock in the last 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt. The fact that people say the higher up say they don't see money in Dolph Ziggler is stupid, in my opinion. I understand you're a company and you have to make money. And, a guy like John Cena makes money. A guy like, The Undertaker makes money.
A guy like Daniel Bryan now.
Yeah. A guy, we want to get a guy in there that sells t-shirts. I understand that. And like CM Punk said in one of his promos, like, you don't really get noticed around here until you start moving a couple T-shirts. And that's really true. If they see money in you and they see you selling a couple T-shirts, by God, you're gonna get a push.
Yeah. But yeah, it's unfortunate what happened with the world title, and I think Cody Rhodes. I think even though Damian Sandow has the Money in the Bank, I think Damian Sandow is going to be the only in history transitional Money in the Bank winner.
Or
I think the only reason that they put Money in the Bank on Damian Sandow is to have Damian Sandow cash in, win the title, only to immediately lose it to Cody Rhodes. Because Cody Rhodes is the guy that's going to legitimize the world title again.
Yeah.
But until he does, until he's ready for that, until WWE is ready for that period in time,
Yeah.
the world title is basically in flux.
Although he legitimized the Intercontinental title, and now the Intercontinental title had kind of fallen off again.
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
That is a sad but true thing. Although this is where you and I disagree, so let's get into this a little bit.
Oh my God!
I actually do like Curtis Axel.
Oh.
And the reason I'm going to talk about the reasons why I like him because as you could see, Brandon's already exacerbated, so he's going to go on a whole spiel about why he sucks. But the problem with it is that Curtis Axel got the focus taken off of him because they thought it was more important for Paul Heyman to sell Brock Lesnar. Sorry, I almost said Ryback, but Brock Lesnar first, and then Ryback. And I think if they would allow Curtis Axel to legitimately do something, then he'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my opinion. He's a victim of bad booking. But if you give him a chance, because he's shown it a little bit when they put him on the mic and he says, "I'm better than perfect." I mean, that line sells itself. That line is a character in and of itself.
Yeah.
He just needs to legitimately get a chance to run with it.
Yeah.
And I apologize. I got into it and talked with my hands, so I think I hit my mic there. So I apologize for feedback in the audio.
Yeah, but, Curtis Axel, great wrestler, in my opinion. I think he's a great wrestler, but he lacks a lot of charisma. And it could be that they're letting Paul Heyman talk to him, but every time he talks, and, I'm not the only one thinking this, our friend Deluxe Man think this. I've seen many people on...
Yeah, I'd love to have you on the show, Alex, so if you're listening, come on, breaking the fourth wall, dude.
Yeah.
Cause
you're
awesome. I love you.
Yeah, you got a great wrestling mind, man.
Yeah.
Even Andre Corbeil. I want Andre Corbeil on here, too. But people beg for him to put down the mic because every time he gets on the mic, he gets killed, whatever Paul Heyman said. Except for...
Well, but that's the problem. That's my problem, and that's why I said what I said. I think it was a mistake for him to be Paul Heyman's, or to let Paul Heyman be his mouthpiece, sorry.
Yeah.
Because anytime you let Paul Heyman be anybody's mouthpiece, anybody is going to fail in comparison next to Paul Heyman. The only guy legitimately in wrestling that can keep up with Paul Heyman is CM Punk. And that's why it worked so well for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Paul Heyman is a promo god. And the guys they're putting him with are going to fail in comparison.
Except Ryback.
Him and Ryback is a perfect match because Ryback cannot cut a promo.
I'm like, Ryback?
Ryback lacks the charisma. Ryback is the old school big man that needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I think they made a ginormously well done decision there. Yeah. Like I could not applaud it more at all. Especially since he was starting to get over a little bit as a heel on its own anyway, with this whole bullying thing
Yeah.
and like the different mannerisms that he started doing, like the lack of marching around the ring, where now he just picks up a guy and just drops him immediately, viciously into the finish, into
Yep.
the shell shock.
Yep.
I think that that is what you need for a big guy to work. So him with Paul Heyman is legitimate. It works perfectly.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for Curtis Axel, it's making Curtis Axel get the shaft. So Curtis Axel needs to break away from Heyman and be a heel on his own and get into a feud with a guy like a Cody Rhodes.
Yep.
When that happens, Curtis Axel will be a star.
Yep.
But until Curtis Axel is allowed to legitimize himself as himself, we're not going to know if he's a star. I personally think he could be because I think he's got the potential. Like I said, that line, I'm better than perfect, sells itself. But that's the true test, isn't it? Give him the chance to have a legitimate like feud. Give him the chance to carry himself. If he falls flat on his face, then everybody who thinks that is right and I'm wrong. But we won't know unless he's given the opportunity. And I think Curtis Axel is a guy who needs to be given the opportunity or it's a waste.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I tend to agree with that. Even the Intercontinental title, and I can't remember, very many Intercontinental title matches that he had. Like, I remember the one against CM Punk, but that's the only one I remember.
Right.
Like,
Well, the one against Kofi at Survivor Series before the match with Punk.
Yeah.
And him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it has been a long time since he's defended the title.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is it goes back to the main event storyline and everything being involved in one big storyline right now.
Yep.
Because the way WWE is being booked right now, even though it's brilliant and even though we love it, there is basically no mid-card scene.
Nope.
At all.
Nope, not at all.
Because everybody's being seen as a smaller stepping stone for Daniel Bryan.
Yep. I mean, we have RVD in the main event storyline. We have Dolph, primetime players, the Usos, Kofi Kingston. They're all in that main event storyline.
So it's not just Curtis Axel getting screwed over right now.
Yeah.
It's anybody not named Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Anybody not named Daniel Bryan or Randy Orton are getting forgot about right now.
Yep.
Even the tag team scene, which they tried so hard to revitalize, which they're still trying because Los Matador Race is going to debut tonight. Which, by the way, you were right. I was wrong. I didn't want it to be Primo and Epico because I was like, really?
Yeah.
They're that lazy that they're going to just repackage two guys that we've already seen. Yep. But yeah, it was Primo and Epico's brainchild the whole time. Apparently, they've been trying to do it for like half a year. So I hope it works for their sake because I think they're good two little workers, but they should not have used Ole. That's my only problem.
It threw me off the first time I heard it. I'm like, oh my god, they let El Generico come back with a gimmick. Then I'm like,
exactly.
Then I look at it and I'm like, oh, screw you, man. I'm like, I was kind of hopeful for Sami Zayn right there, but although Sami Zayn and Antonio Cesaro had one of the best matches I've ever seen on NXT.
And it sucks right now because I'm not able to follow NXT like I was because I can no longer afford to pay for both Netflix and Hulu Plus.
Right.
Like I had to let Hulu Plus go because it just literally it was NXT was the only reason to keep Hulu Plus because Hulu Plus has the ads and Netflix has so much more material and all that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just gonna have to go back to using other methods, if you catch my drift. To
use Steve.
Yeah, to see NXT. But
yeah,
Sami Zayn, I give him credit because I'd never seen him without a mask. No one ever had.
Yep.
And he is still showing that he's a talent without a mask.
Although we're never ever gonna get again another Kevin Steen El Generico match, which
Which, the way it ended, at least if that's the way it ended, that's like the most epic ending ever.
Yeah, ladder war, amazing.
Because that was one of the best ladder matches I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, no doubt. Anytime Dean and Generico got in there, I was actually scared that someone was gonna die at the Final Battle 2010 when they just went into that hating each other, like wanting to kill each other. I was actually scared for one of them. I was like, okay, someone's gonna end up getting killed in this match.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would crazy match. But you wanna talk about Jim Ross now?
Yeah. I mean, we've exhausted everything else about WWE, and we kind of did things backwards. Like, we tried to talk about the other companies before WWE because WWE always dominates the show.
Yep.
But there was so much to talk about with WWE and the change in marketing that we kind of had to do it first.
Yep. And the only thing we can say about TNA is they're coming out with an awesome storyline way too late in their career, way too late in their company, and I think...
Yeah, and it's awesome, but it's also CM Punk 2.0. I mean, it's basically the same storyline they did with Punk, except with the twist of the owner being one that wants the wrestler out, not the wrestler wanting out himself.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Hulk Hogan on Thursday.
I think Hulk Hogan's getting written off TNA television, which all I can say about that is I don't know if it's getting picked up on the microphone or not, but I'm clapping. Like, thank God.
Yep.
Because wrestling doesn't need Hulk Hogan anymore.
Yep.
It just doesn't.
Yep, I think TNA is losing money, and I think when Hulk Hogan goes, that's when the company goes, unfortunately. So I give it about another 6-7 months before TNA is off TV completely.
Well, the interesting thing about it is everybody wants TNA to get back to being the old school TNA about its own original stars and not a WCW clone. So AJ Styles will be the test. When AJ Styles takes that title at Bound for Glory and runs with it, he will be the test as to whether or not TNA does succeed.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, you want to talk about how Ric Flair royally screwed over Jim Ross, or?
Yes, absolutely. We do have ROH to talk about at the end of the show. ROH put on a great tournament and a great Death Before Dishonor, so we will talk about that.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Ric Flair got drunk, and he cost Jim Ross his job.
Yep.
Whether or not Jim Ross and WWE want to admit it or not, Jim Ross was fired.
Yep.
Jim Ross did not retire. There's no reason to ever not want Jim Ross around.
Yep.
It was WWE using Jim Ross as a scapegoat because they cannot punish Ric Flair with his current health and with his current need for money with divorces.
Yep.
They can't punish the real guy that was the real problem, which was Ric Flair. So Vince has never liked Jim Ross because Jim Ross is one of the few guys in wrestling that knows more than he does.
Yep.
So it was a scapegoat.
Yeah, it was.
And I, for one, am holding out hope that Jim Ross will not be gone forever.
Yeah.
I think there's still a chance that Jim Ross could be back in time for WrestleMania to call a WrestleMania match, and it'll be a surprise to people. I hope I'm right, because it's the 30th anniversary of WrestleMania. Can you really have that big of a WrestleMania without Jim Ross?
Yeah.
The answer is no, but is Vince McMahon going to swallow his pride long enough to realize that?
Yeah.
That's a question.
I don't think Vince McMahon will ever swallow his pride, ever. I don't think that's him. Otherwise, we would have seen Randy Savage in the Hall of Fame years ago.
Well, I completely agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, but funny as Ric Flair was, and funny Jim Ross played it off. It was unprofessional of Rick. It was, You were going in there to talk about WWE 2K14. That's what the whole thing was about. And when you come out with stories about, you know, getting drunk with JR, helping JR find his wife, uh, you know, burying Daniel Bryan, which is what Rick did at one point, said that in so many words that Daniel Bryan didn't deserve to be, you know, sitting on the same panel as Ric Flair. Um,
And he was drunk, and I don't think he meant what he said. But
yeah,
then some people say that you're more truthful when you're drunk.
yeah,
So it really just depends, I guess.
yeah. Which, in my opinion, Ric Flair in his prime versus Daniel Bryan would have been a great match. That would have, you know, been a 5-star classic. But Rick is not the Ric Flair of old, and I think that really is shown. You know, he lost his wives. You know, he lost his son. You know, this guy's going through it. This guy's going through a really tough time, and some people handle it in more ways than others, and some people, you know, get flat out drunk to deal with the depression. I have people in my family who, you know, deal with depression by getting drunk, and I do,
As do I.
yeah, and I do not agree with the, you know, getting, you know, get shit faced and, you know, flat out drunk. I do believe that depression does exist, and some people have different ways of coping, you know.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't want to sit here and bash Ric Flair because that's not going to get us anywhere. But Ric Flair owes a big apology to Jim Ross. He needs to go back in there sober to
Yep.
Vince's office and be like, this was my doing.
Yep.
Give JR his job back. If he doesn't do that, then he needs to pay Jim Ross half of his legend salary for the rest of his life.
Yep. Yep. And I don't think he can real man if Ric Flair doesn't do that. Go in there and say, that was my fault, you know.
Because Jim Ross will forever be the greatest announcer of all time.
Yeah.
Not named Gorilla Monsoon.
Oh my god, Gorilla Monsoon. Rest in peace to him. He was amazing.
And not named
Bobby Heenan.
Bobby Heenan or Gordon Solie.
Yep.
Like, the 4 greatest announcers of all time. Gordon Solie, Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon, Jim Ross.
It sucks to see how bad cancer has eaten away at Bobby Heenan. It you know,
It really does.
You see pictures.
I mean, but can you imagine WrestleMania 30 if Bobby Heenan was healthy and Gorilla Monsoon hadn't died? Can you imagine how great of a panel that would have been for a 30th anniversary of WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Jim Ross, Gorilla Monsoon, and Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
On the same announce table.
Throw Gordon Solie in there too.
Yeah, of course he would be 100 by now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
But I'm still holding out hope that Jim Ross will be involved in Mania 30.
Yeah, I am too. Now before we get into the whole ROH deal, I want you to talk about your buddy BJ Whitmer, because I know that you are closely connected with BJ Whitmer. Because
I was. You know, something that a lot of people don't know about me is I'm not just a wrestling fan. I actually spent time in the Ohio independent scene. It didn't last as long as I wanted it to because of various issues that happened. But at one time, I legitimately thought that I had a chance to, as a booker or a manager or something, had a chance to actually be in the business.
Yeah.
And I spent about 4 years building an independent reputation. And when you go around the state, you're booking guys from the state because they're the easiest guys that you can book. And BJ Whitmer is from Cincinnati, and BJ Whitmer's a guy that I worked with probably more than anybody I'd worked with in my short career.
Yep.
And he is just one of the most legitimate people, not just as a person, but as a professional. He was one of the most professional guys. He would do whatever the booker asked him to do, and he would never complain one cent about it. And he is humble, and he thanks everybody who got him to where he was. Like him calling Jimmy Jacobs in the ring at Death Before Dishonor, that was legitimate because him and Jimmy Jacobs started in the business together, and him and Jimmy Jacobs are the best of friends. So that is legitimate in real life, and that's why their feud was so good in the Ring of Honor. Because if you think about the greatest feuds of all time, it's best friends who get to feud with each other.
Yep.
Because even though it was a really messed up reason, Matt Hardy and Edge had great chemistry because they were friends before all the crap over Lita happened.
Yep.
And if you look at BJ Whitmer versus Jimmy Jacobs,
Yep.
those are some of the greatest independent matches you will ever see. But yeah, I'm absolutely heartbroken. And I know that Michael Bennett didn't mean to end BJ Whitmer's career. But the other thing that people don't know about BJ Whitmer, and he alluded to it somewhat in his retirement speech, is that this isn't the first time that his career has been over. He thought it was over about 10 years ago. And so this is a guy that has a great heart, is a great performer, great seller, has given everything that he knows how to give, but can't catch a break. And that is the most heartbreaking thing to me about BJ, is that I know that he had so much more to give. And he is so eerily similar to Edge in that regard. Like, he could have been around for another 10 or 15 years had his body let him do it. So BJ, everybody that ever worked with you loves you. Everybody that ever saw you in the ring loves you. And, just find some peace and find some closure somehow, man, because this is not your fault. And you're a legitimate good guy. And I'm sorry to see you go. I really am.
Yeah.
So, everybody please, show some respect for BJ Whitmer. If you've never seen a BJ Whitmer match, go and watch one, because you don't know what you missed. You really don't.
Right.
And other than that heartbreaking moment, Death Before Dishonor was a great show.
Yeah. I was told that the ending was really, really good. So I went and watched the ending of the pay-per-view, and I knew what happened as soon as it happened. Adam Cole turning heel, attacking. That was the first time Jay Briscoe had been seen in quite a while, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time since the injury.
Yeah. Jay Briscoe and Michael Elgin.
Well, he did do internet vignettes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Michael Elgin, Jay Briscoe attacking those two, the top guys in ROH right now. So, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm excited about it because Adam Cole is one of the most underrated guys in wrestling right now. And I think he can be a real exciting champion. I think it was smart to turn him heel, because guys that are heels get a chance to do more than guys that are faces.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, kudos to ROH for a great show. And for those that were aware of the pay-per-view issues, they actually did, the iPay-per-view issues, they actually did have a flawless feed on their end. It was just problems on the home end. So if you go and order the replay, there is absolutely no errors in the replay. This is the first ROH pay-per-view in almost a year where you're going to see like 0 hiccups. I mean, absolutely none.
That's good, and I'm glad they finally moved to a good service provider.
So I'm hoping that whatever happened on the home end at Death Before Dishonor will be fixed by the next pay-per-view, because it's a chance for ROH to be legitimate again.
Awesome.
So yeah, go however you do it, whether you order it or if you have other means that you do it. Like, we don't We're not going to talk about those, but you all know what we mean. Go and see Death Before Dishonor
Yeah.
because it was a great show, and I think ROH has a great future now ahead of them. And when Jay Briscoe comes back, it's going to be a hot feud with Adam Cole.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. Yep.
So that's about it, really. I mean, we had a lot to talk about, but that's about it for this show, I think.
Yep. Yep. It
So,
is.
go ahead and plug your stuff, and I'll plug mine, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. You're watching it right now on WWE TNA for Life YouTube page, so I don't really have to plug that to you, but I'll plug my Twitter. I'm going to do the same thing. WWE TNA for Life. That's about it. My to avcorngeeky.com, but I'll let Raz plug
Our official
geeky.com.
sponsor of the show, where the official archive is geeky.com. When it's just not geeky enough, that's g3ck-e.com. So for me, it's Razman's Reality everywhere, razmansreality.com, which I am working on legitimizing. I have some ideas for it. So it's actually not just a placeholder website with some blogs. So hopefully by the next couple of recordings, I'll be able to have something to plug on there for that. But razmansreality.com, Razman's Reality on Facebook, at facebook.com/razmansreality, and at razmansreality on Twitter. And then, of course, our other co-host who couldn't be here, but will hopefully be back sooner rather than later, Skinslip, at Skinslip on Twitter. And also follow him under his podcast, The Movie Gangbang, at geeky.com. And the show, of course, is facebook.com/breaking the fourth wall, and also Twitter at BW fourth
BT4 wall.
BT4 wall. I keep screwing it up. Eventually I'm gonna get it right, I swear. But BT fourth wall on Twitter. Again, the studio line for future recordings is 937-660-8571. And with that, we're out, and this has been Breaking the Fourth Wall, the most hard